Okay, let's get into this. Imagine someone, a figure who seems just, gone from the official story, like a historical ghost. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a real enigma, Pope Leo XIV. He supposedly had this very short reign, maybe 33 days, back in the late 19th century.
Right, and the immediate problem, the thing that makes this a mystery right off the bat, is that he's just not there, not in the Vatican's official lists. You look at the popes around that time, you've got Leo III, long reign, 1878 to 1903, then boom, straight to Pius X, officially. No space, no mention, no Leo XIV.
Exactly, and that gap, that official silence, is where this whole thing kicks off. So what we want to do today is really unpack this, look at the hints, the unofficial clues that suggest he was real, and weigh that against, the Vatican's position. Then explore some of the theories, which get pretty interesting. We want you, listening, to kind of join us in sifting through it. Is it just a mistake? Was he erased?
Yeah.
Or something else entirely?
Well, it's fascinating because even with that official wall of silence, there are these persistent, unofficial whispers. You find mentions of a Leo XIV popping up in some older Catholic texts, particularly seems to be from France and Spain around the turn of the century there.
But it's not just text, is it?
Yeah.
Which is what makes it more compelling, I think.
Yeah.
There's physical evidence. Apparently a gravestone in a small church in Italy. And it supposedly reads quite clearly, Leo XIV pontifex for a month, pontifex, Pope. I mean, that's incredibly specific, etched in stone.
It is specific, and it doesn't stop there. You also get these contemporaneous accounts, like obituaries, found in some regional newspapers back in the 1890s. For a Leo XIV, suggests somebody thought he existed, or at least died back then. Plus, there's this account, reportedly from a French cardinal's diary. Mentions a brief Leo just before Pius X took over.
So when you pull it all together, it's not just one isolated rumor. It's a gravestone, obits, these texts from different places, a diary entry. It's this weird scattered collection, but it all points the same way, towards this short-lived pope. That's quite a bit of smoke for there to be absolutely no fire, officially speaking.
And then there's the rumor, the really tantalizing one, about the Vatican Library. The claim is that deep in the restricted section, there's a single document that does reference him. But, getting access to verify something like that, extremely difficult, which just adds to the whole mystique.
Okay, so that's the case for him, or at least there's something strange happening. What about the official side?
The Vatican. Their stance is clear. He didn't exist. Full stop. They generally dismiss these claims you mentioned. It's a misprint, maybe a local legend that got out of hand, or possibly he was an anti-pope, a rival claimant, someone not recognized by the church hierarchy. That's a common explanation they float.
An anti-pope. Okay.
But the core of their argument is the archives. The official records. There are no papal bulls. Those are the official decrees. No letters, no entries in the formal succession list, nothing. And the Vatican archives are, famously expensive, meticulous usually. For them, if it's not in the record, it didn't happen officially.
Right. But that's where it gets tricky, doesn't it? How do they explain the unofficial stuff then? I mean, okay, a misprint in a book, maybe. But the gravestone, the obituaries, do they just ignore those bits, or is there an official explanation for how those specific things came about?
That's pretty much the crux of it. It often feels like a blanket denial rather than a detailed rebuttal of each piece of unofficial evidence. And that silence, that refusal to engage with the specifics, like the gravestone, well, that's what feeds all the speculation. But, all right, before we jump into the really dramatic theories, the erasure ideas, let's think about simpler explanations. Could there be a more mundane reason for all this?
Yeah, fair enough. The simple is probably just a typo, a printer error. Leo III gets accidentally printed as Leo XIV in some book or newspaper somewhere, and maybe that mistake just gets copied, repeated. Seems plausible for some of the text mentions, maybe even the obits if they copy a bad source.
It's possible. Or, another thought, local pride. Could a small town or church, perhaps the one with the gravestone, have sort of invented or elevated a local figure? Claimed he was pope briefly to boost their own status. It sounds a bit cynical, but local boosterism can lead to some strange historical claims sometime.
Maybe. And the anti-pope idea. You mentioned the Vatican sometimes suggests this. Historically, there were lots of anti-popes, right? Rival claimants causing chaos.
Oh, absolutely. For centuries, it was a recurring problem. Schisms, rival papal courts. So it's definitely plausible that someone made a claim to be Leo XIV, maybe had some local backing, but was never officially recognized. And the church just didn't even bother recording him as a rival, just ignored him to maintain that clean line of succession.
Okay, so those are the simpler theories. Misprint, local story, unrecorded anti-pope. But that gravestone again, pontifex for a month. It feels so deliberate.
It does, doesn't it? A misprint is one thing, carving it in stone is another level. It makes the simple typo explanation feel a bit thin, at least for that piece of evidence. It pushes back.
Exactly. So if those simpler ideas don't quite cover everything, especially the gravestone, that's when you get to the erasure theories, the idea that he was real and someone actively covered it up. Why? Well, one theory circles back to the anti-pope idea. Maybe he was an anti-pope, but a potentially dangerous or destabilizing one.
Right. Perhaps acknowledging him, even just to denounce him, could have caused too much trouble. Undermine Leo XIII or the coming conclave for Pius X. So maybe the easiest thing was just total silence. Pretend he never existed. Wipe the slate clean.
Then there's the darker version. The idea that Leo XIV wasn't an anti-pope, he was legitimate, but radical. Maybe he wanted to push through some major reforms, things the powers that be in the Vatican strongly opposed.
And in that scenario, the suggestion is he was, well, removed, assassinated even. And then to prevent chaos or scandal, his entire papacy, short as it was simply erased from history.
That's pretty dramatic. And then the most provocative one.
The discovery theory.
Yeah. The idea that maybe Leo XIV stumbled onto something hidden in the Vatican.
Something damaging, like a lost scripture challenging core beliefs or evidence of a huge scandal or, worse, whatever that might mean. Something so explosive that the only way to handle it was to silence him and erase his brief time as Pope entirely.
It's amazing how one historical blank space can lead down so many paths, from simple errors to these huge conspiracies.
But what keeps bringing people back, I think, is that total absence in the official record. Okay, maybe he was an anti-pope, maybe it was a mistake, but why nothing? Not even a footnote somewhere saying unconfirmed claimant or erroneous report. The Vatican archives are vast. To have absolutely zero trace, even of a controversy or a mistake, that feels weird. It's the completeness of the void that's so odd.
And it does tie into that bigger picture, doesn't it? About access to historical records, especially with powerful institutions like the Church.
Definitely. The fact that large parts of the Vatican archives are restricted or very difficult to access, it fuels these kinds of mysteries.
When you can't easily check the official source, it leaves room for doubt, for alternative stories, for theories like this to grow and persist for decades.
So it leaves us, and you listening, with this puzzle. Pope Leo XIV, was he real and deliberately scrubbed from the books? Or is he just a historical echo, a ghost created by mistakes and wishful thinking?
We might honestly never get a definitive answer. And maybe that's the point sometimes, but it does leave you with a thought, doesn't it? Something to chew on. If it is possible for history, especially history involving powerful institutions, to contain secrets so sensitive they simply cannot be allowed out, what does it really mean for everything else we think we know about the past? What else might be hidden just out of sight?